It's the dog days of summer out there, and records are being broken for temperatures across the country. But over at ACEC, our eyes are fixed on October, because that's when we're going to be holding our 2023 Fall Conference. That's right, and registration is open now for the event taking place from October 15th through the 18th in beautiful Austin, Texas. Now go over to our website, www.acec.org/FC, to get all the information you need to register for this event. Now seize your opportunity to be part of the largest event in the engineering design service industry, focused on the business of engineering, where professionals attend educational sessions, major networking events, forums, roundtables, and more. Early bird again ends on September 14th. Make sure you lock in the best rate possible. Go to www.acec.org/FC for all the information you need. Again, the 2023 ACEC Fall Conference, Austin, Texas, October 15th through 18th. We'll see you there. The AEC industry is rapidly changing, but your team doesn't have time to reinvent workflows for every new technology or client demand. ProjectWise, powered by iTwin, puts you in control and positions your firm for non-disruptive change. Whether you need to improve design quality, optimize existing processes, or even get started with digital delivery and digital twins, ProjectWise enables you to make the most of what you already have without starting over. Visit go.bentley.com/podcast to see how ProjectWise is empowering AEC firms to do more with less. Once again, that's go.bentley.com/podcast to learn more. Welcome to Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies, brought to you by Bentley Systems. And today we are actually on our second part of talking about Bentley Systems and their ProjectWise software for engineers. And last time we introduced the ProjectWise Component Center and essentially how it empowers engineering firms to manage the digital assets that all firms are increasingly putting into its library and sharing amongst teams and projects. And today we're going to go a little bit deeper. We're going to dive into the question of how firms should really standardize their engineering design review process and how firms should actually approach project workflows in this digital environment that everyone's kind of swimming in and trying to figure out, how best to manage all this data and actually create an efficient workflow to get it from start to finish. And to have this conversation, I'm very pleased to be joined by an expert, Dan Cutler. He is an applications engineer with Bentley Systems in England and London, UK. And Dan, thank you very much for joining us today and getting into this.
Thank you, Jeff.
So, Dan, yeah, and I really appreciate you being here, because this is where the rubber meets the road, really, because having all these digital assets now and sharing it across teams within engineering firms it's great, because when it works efficiently, you can really streamline processes. But the problem is it's managing all these digital assets. And in your experience, is there a standard approach that firms should take in managing all of these digital assets, and how can Bentley kind of assist them in the process?
Yeah, absolutely. You need to have a standardized approach, because, like you say, we have this kind of shift to digital, and that's great, but it can introduce complexity. So, for the average person using a new system that looks complex, they're saying, what's the benefit here? We're just spending more time doing extra work that we we didn't have to do before. But I think it is really important. I think if you get those processes in place and if you can standardize effectively, then ultimately you become more efficient. And that's what it's all about. And obviously Bentley has the software to help that in ProjectWise. I think everyone's needs are different. I've not seen two systems that are exactly the same. I think every engineering firm has different wants, different needs, different requirements for their clients. So it's good to work within a framework, but you have to be able to tweak that and change that to fit your specific needs.
Absolutely. It's it seems that there's always kind of, when it gets into workflows, there seems to be kind of a rhythm or a standard kind of process that people use, and then they kind of take a look at what they need and what the needs are of the project and the firm, and they kind of tailor it down to exactly what they need to get the project done. From ProjectWise and the components within the software, I mean, how scalable and flexible is it for engineering firms to really make it unique to them and fit their specific needs?
Well, there's two aspects to that. I mean, within ProjectWise, it's a very configurable solution. So we can start just with a document repository with no rules attached to it. There's no requirements. You can just drop a document in there and make it available to everybody. But of course, that doesn't represent good information management practice. So we have to work within some confines and say, actually, you shouldn't do it like this. You should do it like that. And really, that's for a lot of firms, that was already kind of common sense, best practice information management. A lot of firms are already doing it. So when the ISO standard came along and its predecessor, the BS 1192 standard in the UK, it just put down in writing what I think people were doing to a certain extent. It introduced some new concepts as well, but yeah, you've got this process that's being, in the case of the UK, it's being dictated by government, right? So they're saying if you do any work with the government, you must follow this process. So any railway, any road work, that's all government related. So ultimately, most of the big contractors in the UK have had to work to this standard, whether they like it or not. And quite often they didn't like it, right? It's not easy to change because it's a lot of work. There's a lot of different things, different processes you have to go through. So there was a process of change. I've been working with ProjectWise and the organizations that are following these standards for about 10 years. And, we still have the same conversations with contractors. They're saying, we're being told to do this. We don't want to work like that, but actually or sometimes they're saying, actually, we can see the benefit of it, but we don't know how to get there. You hear the same stories and the same pains that are coming through. So yeah, I think ultimately there are benefits to it, but there is definitely a journey there. So you have the technology with ProjectWise, you have the process with the ISO 19650 standard, and then the third requirement really is the people. So if you've got a champion in your organization that wants to implement a BIM strategy, improve information management, then that's fantastic, and they can drive it. And it's either driven from the bottom up or from the top down. I've seen it work both ways, but you have to want to change. You can't just buy software and it happens.
Yeah, that's true. You need to have that leadership at the firm level to drive the change and to get the adoption out there, because otherwise Absolutely. it's not going to work. And that's for any solution. It's for anything really, especially with technology, right? It's that it's staying with it and having that commitment that you're going to not just implement the technology, but this is how we're going to work. We're going to have to evolve the way that we're actually handling things because we want to be compliant with the standards. And let's talk a little bit more about that standard, the BIM standard. So we're talking about ISO 19650. And can you explain to our audience, really what that standard is, how it approaches BIM and kind of how ProjectWise can help firms deal with and comply with the standard?
Yeah, I will do my best. So it's a standard. It's quite a broad ranging thing, really, but it's really focused on design construction projects of any sort. It's designed to work on mega projects down to small projects. It doesn't have to be overly complex. I think when you first look at that standard, I guess any ISO standard is the same, right? You look at it and there's pages and pages of stuff that you're like, well, this is a lot. But actually, when you get into it, it's logical. It's promotes good practice information management. Things like naming documents in a way that makes sense. So every document code is made up of the project number, the originator. So you already know who created that document. It states the discipline. Whether it's architectural or electrical or whatever, and the document type. So you have all this information already in the document code. And if everyone follows the same standard, then you get to know what that means, and it becomes normal. So there's that aspect to it. There is the aspect of different states a document can exist in. So you're going from a work in progress document where only your discipline should see and be able to work on that document, and then going through phases to get it to a shared state where once it's shared, then it's available to other disciplines to see, but it's been through its internal checks. So we know it's fit for purpose. And that's a big part of the standard, is saying I should only be able to see information when it's fit for purpose. So if you think about something like a general document storage area without permission control, then anybody can see anything. So the danger is that that someone as a mechanical engineer could pick up an architectural drawing. They go, oh, well, that I can see that's over there. The wall is here, so I'm going to build this bit next to it. But actually, that's an old version. They shouldn't be using that. So it just helps people to work within the confines of the rules without really thinking about it too much. And that's where the technology comes in, right? So the standard is kind of baked into the technology. And it means that if I try and create a document in the wrong place, I can't. I'm just not allowed to do it. So the permission control says, nope, you haven't got permission to create in this folder, in this area. And likewise, I can't see documents unless they've been accepted and approved and are fit for purpose.
Yeah,
So
that's important. It's important.
yeah,
Because I just in the last episode just talking about not being an engineer myself, but just dealing with a lot of data and a lot of digital assets, version control, chain of custody, not knowing that you're not picking up a file that is older, that if it doesn't follow a certain naming convention or it doesn't have the metadata attached to it that actually tells you the status, the person who originated it, where it is in the system, and somebody just grabs a file and starts working off of it without that control in place, especially something with an engineering
absolutely.
project, that could be disastrous for a project team if they picking something. So having the standard, but then having the software like ProjectWise, which enables and empowers firms to design the documents in line with the standard. But I would imagine they can also put in their own individual metadata within that file. So you have the standard, but then firms can do it so that for their own tracking and management purposes, they understand where things are in the process.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. And I don't think I've seen a ProjectWise system that is the same as another. So they will all start with
Yeah.
a baseline ISO framework and then make their own changes to that as they need to.
Yeah.
So some will go as far as to have a completely separate naming convention. So they'll have an internal naming convention, then they'll have their client or their ISO compliant naming convention. So that's just additional metadata that ProjectWise can provide. So yeah, absolutely. Every system is tailored to the user's need and what they require. But it's good to also think about how they need to deliver to their client. So if they're both using similar environments, then it makes the handover process a lot faster. There's a lot less work for the document controllers to say, well, I've got all this data, but it doesn't have it doesn't mean anything to us. So quite often they'll go through a process to add in metadata manually, and that's the wrong time to do it. That data should already be there.
So yes, you have it baked into the cake. It gets over to the client. and it's interoperable so that you have it set up so that it could easily
Exactly.
be understood and integrated into their systems. So everybody's talking together.
And it's having confidence in that data. It's being able to go into the system and saying, this is the drawing that is the latest version. As you said, I know it's up to date. I know I'm not looking at something that's out of date. And you hear horror stories of people building from out of date drawings, and it costs millions of dollars to rectify the issue. Whereas actually, if you just have a simple process in place to say, well, no one in construction is going to see this file until the right time, then you should eliminate those problems.
Yeah, and those are significant. I mean, those are the legal implications, the financial implications.
Absolutely. Yeah.
For something like that is it could be astronomical depending on the project.
Oh yeah. Financial penalties are enormous, and that could wipe out your margin instantly. So yeah, it really does pay to have a good strategy in place. And a small firm all working in the same office, they can communicate with each other and say, there's a later version of the drawing over here. Let's get that. But as soon as you're working in different offices or working from home, you need some kind of system that's going to enable you to have the confidence that the data is correct.
Yeah, that's a good point too, because I mean we have so many firms that are still not 100% in the office, where they've gone to hybrid work, that having the confidence that somebody doing work at home doesn't mean that they've left kind of the bubble of the of that system. For firms that are looking at putting on or bringing onto a software platform like ProjectWise, I mean, how does Bentley interact with the client in kind of setting it up? Is it kind of like a fairly bespoke process to say, okay, yes, you have all these things that are built in to follow the standards, ISO standards, what have you, but then building it out to make it yours, you kind of walk them through that process. So at the end of the day, when they fully implement it, it's essentially set up as firm X's software.
Yeah, absolutely. So we go through, initial discovery phases to understand what their pain points are, what their needs, why have they come to Bentley looking for a solution. Quite often they're going from a very simple, Dropbox or SharePoint or something, and they need better control, or maybe they have nothing at all, network drive. So we kind of have to tease out that information, show them how ProjectWise works, and then from there we go into assuming they want to go ahead and implement ProjectWise, we scope out that project and fully understand every possibility for them and what they need, and then we'll implement ProjectWise normally as a variation of the framework. So we start with this kind of baseline framework for ISO 19650. So that sets out a folder structure, workflow processes, document codes, certain metadata fields. And 99% of the time they will say, okay, yeah, but can we add this or can we remove this? And there is flexibility within the standard to change things. And there's certainly flexibility within ProjectWise to configure it differently.
Well, it is a tremendous software. I would recommend everyone listening to go to go.bentley.com /podcast. That will take you to the ProjectWise site to learn more about it. And to really kind of dig in and see exactly, how it could benefit your firm. Dan, I think, I appreciate your time today, because I think we were able to go into a little bit more of the workflow side of things, which is always important, and kind of that, recognition of standards and how, ProjectWise works with those and incorporates them into the platform. For any questions, like I said, go up to that website and take a look at it, and to learn more about Bentley and the services that it provides. So, Dan, I do appreciate you taking the time to be on the program today.
That's a pleasure, Jeff. Thank you very much. And I'd say, we've got application engineers specializing in ProjectWise all over the world, so we can get someone to help show you the product and explain how it works in more detail.
Yeah, absolutely. Find your local office and reach out, and they'll be happy to help you kind of figure out exactly what you need and how to get there. So again, go.bentley.com /podcast. And again, this has been an episode of Engineering Influence. We'll see you next time.